In my last video I made 2 large gates as a commission for some friends, and in this video I'll be installing them, and at the end of the video I'll be addressing some of the comments and questions from the previous video. I needed to get the gates out of the workshop for a while so that I could work on other things, so I stored them in the house for a while, in our hallway directly below our PIV system, which basically blows fresh air through the house. I figured that the combination of a little bit of heat and fresh air might help them to dry out quicker. And I'll talk more about the moisture levels in the wood later in the video. Moving them around was a challenge in itself. I used a few dowels to manoeuvre them across the carpet, a couple of towels to kind of skate it across the vinyl floor in our kitchen, and then I made this trolley thing to wheel them around the house. And I packed up all of the tools that I thought I might need, and we moved them to their new home in this big Mercedes Sprinter van, which belongs to the clients. This van will feature again in some future videos as we're going to be converting it into a camper van. Make sure you are subscribed if you'd like to see that project. I laid out some timber on the floor and I'm using some notched pieces here again so that I could get the gates positioned. Ideally you'd have about a 150mm or 6-inch gap between the gates and the floor, and that's to stop rainfall splashback hitting the bottom rail of the gates. But as the main reason these gates are being installed was to stop a small dog getting out from the garden, we decided to place them a bit closer to the ground to stop the dog getting underneath. Once we were happy with the position, I wedged the gates in, and I'm using some 600mm heavy duty cranked hook and band hinges to install them, 3 on each gate. A good general rule of thumb is that the length of the hinges should be around 1/3 of the width of the gate, or thereabouts. I used a couple of clamps to hold them in position and then secured them first to the gate using some 50mm coach screws. And then here I'm just adding a few more bits of timber to get the gate sitting plumb to the gate post. Then I can secure the hook part of the hinges to the gate posts, and I'm using longer 100mm coach screws for this. And I didn't leave much of a gap between the post and the gates here, probably about 3 or 4mm, again because moisture levels in the timber were still really high, around 30%, so in theory it shouldn't ever expand much bigger than it is right now. I can then remove all the timber and see how it was hanging, and this is where we experienced our first problem. I think I mentioned in the previous video that the gate posts were installed by the clients. They used 150mm or 6-inch square posts, which were first post-creted into the ground so that about 1/3 of the length of the post was in the ground, which I believe is a good general rule of thumb, and then they filled the rest of that hole at the top with concrete. And I knew that the posts were installed plumb because I'd checked that prior to installation of the gates. But as soon as the first gate was hung, we noticed that the gate wasn't sitting perfectly level. The post itself seemed rigid enough to support the weight of the gate. What was actually happening was that the weight of the gate was forcing both the post and the concrete foundations to move slightly in the ground, meaning that the gate was leaning inwards. We could actually see that movement in the ground too when we pushed the post with a lot of force. It was moving by a few millimeters back and forth, which meant that unfortunately the foundations would need to be dug out again and redone. In an ideal world there would have been something to tie the gate post into. For example, if there was a wall nearby that the post could be secured to, that would solve the problem, but that wasn't the case here. There was nothing to fix it to. Rather than give up and go home, we decided that I might as well try and fit the next gate to see if we'd have the same issue. So I got that one positioned in the same way as I did before, and then I propped up the first gate so that it was sitting level again. I could use the spirit level as a reference point for getting the second gate installed at the correct height so that the top of both gates would be flush with one another. And I got that secured to the post, and once that one was hung, we found that the second gate post didn't have any movement in it at all. It was nice and rigid, it was plumb, and the gate was sitting perfectly level. So the issue with the foundations seemed to be specific to the first post only. The second post seemed absolutely fine. We had some of these spring-loaded gate casters to add to the gates. These will just help to take some of the load of the weight off the posts. And I'm not sure how these are meant to be installed, but I found that using an F-clamp to fully compress the spring and then securing it in place and releasing the clamp worked well enough for me. I did end up needing to move the position of it later though, because I realised that the deadbolt would need to go here instead, so you'll see in the next clip that I'd removed it again. Right, so I'm about to fit the deadbolt now, and they want the deadbolt fitted on this side, which unfortunately is the side where the post is moving. So I've propped the gate up and the gate's nice and level. I've also sighted down the length of the two gates just to make sure that everything's sitting straight. And it looks good right there, so now I need to add that deadbolt. Fitting the deadbolt was straightforward, just a case of screwing it in place, making sure that it had plenty enough reach to go into the ground. And then I mark up where to drill a hole in the ground, and I used my SDS drill to drill it out. Ideally, this hole would have a bit of stainless steel or galvanized metal tube on the inside to receive the bolt, but we hadn't planned ahead enough to get one. But that's something that we can add later on. We'll just need to drill out the hole a little bigger to accept it. Other than a little bit of sanding just to clean up the splintery rough sawn wood, that was about all I could get done on day one of the installation due to the problems with the foundation on the first gate post. So we lifted the gates off the hinges and left it there, and a couple of weeks later I got a message to say that the work had been redone to dig out and reconcrete in the first post. So I returned and I gave the post a good shove when I got there, and it was now really rigid in the ground. They'd done a really good job with the new foundations, nice and solid. So we got the gates lifted back onto the hinges. And with the gates hung, I needed to work on getting a nice consistent gap between the two gates. So after marking up a few pencil marks to figure out how much I wanted to remove, I used my electric planer to remove the bulk of the material. And I'm working downwards here to avoid splitting out the end grain of the timber. I should definitely be wearing ear defenders here, but unfortunately I'd forgotten to bring them. I took an equal amount off each gate, and I'm aiming for a gap of about 8mm or so from top to bottom between the gates. And again, I'm working on the assumption that I expect these will contract more than they will expand, as the wood is still wet. And then I finish off by taking a few shavings with the block plane to smooth over any rough cuts left by the electric planer. Now that the edges were trimmed, I then added 4 coach screws just to mechanically secure the glued half-lap joints together on each corner. I did get a question about this in the previous video. I then added a few coats of clear treatment to all of the cut edges, and I also topped up the treatment on the shiplap just to give it yet another coat. And then I fitted the gate latch. Finally, I refitted those gate casters that I showed earlier, and also added a stop bead. This will just help to keep the gates flush with one another when closed. I cut a bevel at the top just to help water run off it, added plenty of clear treatment again, as unfortunately we didn't have any pressure treated timber to use for this, but it's easily replaceable in future anyway, so no big deal. Next, I just wanted to address some of the comments on the first video. First comment about beveling the horizontal rails to help rain to run off and drip away from the gate. And yes, that's absolutely the right thing to do. Any horizontal surface where water can sit on timber is best avoided. And if anyone saw my other recent gate project, which I'll link to below, you'll know that I cut a bevel onto each horizontal rail of that gate. You can also get what are called cant rails from timber merchants, which have that bevel already cut, so you don't need to cut the bevels yourself. For this project, however, the clients didn't want bevels. My original design mock-up for the gates also had a beveled capping rail on top, and I bought those rails too when I bought all of the timber, although one of them quickly turned into a banana, so that was totally unusable. But anyway, if the client prefers the design of the gates without the bevels, all you can really do is advise what's best in that situation. Ultimately, it's up to them. Also, some comments about the fact that I glued and nailed the shiplap in place and questioning whether the wood will be able to expand and contract. And all I can say is that I've tried it both ways in the past on exterior projects, and whichever way I do it, I get told it's wrong. For example, when I built my shed last year, I used one nail fixing to secure each board right through the centre so that the board could expand and contract freely, but I got loads of comments saying that the wood is going to cup and that I should have used 2 nails instead. But when I use 2 nails, like on this project, I get the comments saying that I'm not allowing it to expand and contract. Now, the truth is that this time I basically copied what I've seen Gid Joyner do in one of his gate build videos. I'll link to the video in the description box below if you want to check it out, and if you haven't checked out Gid's channel, you definitely should. He's got much more experience with this kind of stuff than me, as he's been doing it for many, many years, whereas I tend to do more interior projects, furniture builds, stuff like that. Anyway, in his video, he used the same polyurethane glue as me and used 2 nails to secure each board, and as far as I'm concerned, Gid knows best. Now, to be honest, I don't think there's really a right or wrong way to do it. In my experience, yes, if you use 1 nail, the board might cup a little bit. If you use 2 nails to restrict some of that expansion and contraction, then the wood might split a little bit in places. So both options have disadvantages, but the only thing you can really guarantee is that whichever option you choose, you can be sure that someone's going to tell you that you've done it wrong. Lots of comments about the gate posts, and I didn't really have any involvement with the work done installing the posts, mainly because it's not something I have any experience with, so I wouldn't have felt comfortable doing the work for them, and anyway, they were happy doing the work themselves. Most of the comments seem to suggest that bigger posts than the 150mm posts that were installed would have been a better choice, and the suggestions range from 180mm right up to 220mm or 9 inches, which to me seems a bit overkill, but I don't know. All I would say is that when I installed the gates, the movement seemed to be in the ground rather than the post itself. But I'm sure some of the regular gate installers out there know better than me. And also, using thicker posts certainly wouldn't have done any harm. There's nothing wrong with the belt and braces approach. So yeah, maybe it would have helped, but personally I think it was more of an issue with the foundations. But anyway, at the moment the posts are functioning fine. They've been installed since the end of February, so it's been a few weeks at this point and no more issues so far. Hopefully it'll stay that way, but time will tell, and I think waiting for a few seasons to pass will be the real test. One thing I would say though is that in my opinion, having the concrete kind of ramping upwards to the bottom of the posts is a really good idea, because wood that's engulfed in concrete lasts really well from what I've seen. I don't like seeing gate posts installed with soil in contact with the bottom of the post. I just think that's a recipe for disaster, as the soil is where all of the insects and microbes live that are going to eat away at that timber over time, and also the soil holds moisture. A few comments and questions about paint and stains. As I mentioned in the last video, that they'll eventually be painted black once the wood has dried out enough. It's really up to the clients again which products they want to use, but I can tell you what I recommended to them, and it's a solvent-based stain rather than a paint. It's this stuff by Sickens, not a sponsor by the way, and it's not a product that I've actually used either, but I've just heard good things about it, and it's available in ebony colour, so I think it would be perfect. Someone in the comments also mentioned Saddle-In, and I've heard good things about that too, and that's also available in black, so yeah, that's probably another good option. Someone also mentioned that it's a shame to paint or stain them black, and usually I would agree with that. I don't like painting wood either, but actually in this situation, I actually think they're going to look really good in black. I can't wait to see them painted actually. Personally, I've never really been a fan of how wood looks after a few years outside once it starts to grey from all of the UV damage, so I think staining them black is a really good choice. A comment about moisture content. So yeah, basically going into more detail, when I first got the wood back in early December, I think it was, most of it measured around 35 to 38% moisture content. It was stored outside with good airflow for maybe around 6 weeks or so before I started making the gates. And then when the gates were assembled, I put them in the house for maybe another 3 or 4 weeks. When it came to installing the gates in late February, the moisture content was down to about 28 to 33%. So in other words, it was still very wet. It'd have taken many more months to get it down to around 10 to 15%, which would have made it much better to work with, and the gates would have been much lighter at that point and easier to move around too. Finally, I just wanted to thank everyone who watched the video. It performed amazingly well, getting about 4 times as many views as most of my project videos do in the first couple of days, so I was well chuffed with that. And if any fellow YouTube woodworkers are watching, then it's probably a good idea to make some videos about gates. The only downside is that when a video starts picking up views quickly and starts to go a little bit viral, that's when you tend to get the really stupid, trollish comments. And it's a total waste of their time as well as mine, because those comments just get deleted. But what I would say is that constructive criticism is always welcome. If it's a critical comment that either I or others can learn from, then it's absolutely welcome as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe to my channel for more weekly woodworking videos. If you'd like to help support the channel and get early access to my videos, exclusive content, free project plans and cut lists, and a name credit at the end of my videos, then check out my YouTube channel membership or Patreon page, link in the description box below. Thank you for watching.